Hi. The very success of Gavin and Stacey is the reason why the BBC licence fee must be cut in the new year. Welcome to the John Gaunt podcast. Listen to what I've got to say. It makes perfect sense. Are you completely fed up of the way the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, some people say the British Bullshit Corporation, other people the Brexit Broadcasting Corporation, are behaving about Gavin and Stacey? Look, I get it. It's their big success, one of their only successes in the last few years. But the hype they're putting behind it for Christmas Day is outrageous. How much free publicity, well, it's not free, we're paying for it, are they getting? Nearly every programme you turn on is plugging Gavin and Stacey. Every programme. Just how rich is James Corden going to get off the back of it? Is it right the BBC uses their monopoly, state-funded position to push their products so hard? I know it doesn't really matter on one level because linear TV is dead or certainly dying, but it can't be right, can it, that even news programmes, I mean, I was watching The One Show and they had another plug for it last night. Larry Lamb was on, one of my favourite ever actors. I love the actors in it. There's some great people in Gavin and Stacey. I don't think it's very good. I think it's pretty average. Rob Brydon is as funny as a dose of hemorrhoids as far as I'm concerned, but that's a subjective view. I just don't get it. However, how can the BBC keep plugging it? I was watching the news the other day and they had a programme where they had an item which was interviewing people who'd been extras in it in Barry. It wasn't twisting it to say Gavin and Stacey has changed Barry. It has meant that more people go there. It's done this economic uplift, which you could almost justify. No, it was plain and simple a plug for their Christmas Day programmes. Now, I think it's wrong, but the BBC do this all the time. Look at the way they hype up their radio stations. They have an unfair advantage because they plug them like mad on those little trailers, 30-second trailers before EastEnders. It's a constant plug fest. It's an absolute abuse of their majority state-funded, well, funded by you and me, position. I don't mind them saying, listen to local radio for your coverage of your football team. That's okay. But it's when it's Radio 2 anthems. I mean, I don't agree with what they're doing with Radio 2 anyway. They're trying to start all these new little radio stations up to basically F up Boom Radio. You know, the older persons or radio station that they started on their own. They're trying to do the same thing. The same with Capital and Heart. They now do these anthem stations. Well, Radio 2's job, I don't even think Radio 2 should be funded by the licence fee. Are you seriously telling me that they couldn't get sponsors for all those programmes? Of course they could. And now with Zoe Ball leaving with a £1 million salary and whatever payoff she's got, they're surely not going to pay Scott the same amount of money. And if they do, they're stupid. He wouldn't command that money in the private sector. And as I say, Radio 2 can exist in the private sector. Just go back to Gavin and Stacey. Why isn't that programme sponsored? Gavin and Stacey brought to you by whatever. You know, like how Coronation Street is brought to you by Cadbury's. Why can't that happen? Why not? It would cut the costs. Maybe that would mean they wouldn't have to put the licence fee up again. Maybe then they could give free licences to pensioners instead of still ripping them off. Maybe then they'd send less women, and it's mostly women, to prison for not paying this poll tax. And that's what it is. It's a poll tax. Similarly, Radio 4. I've never understood why Radio 4 has to be paid for by a licence fee. All these Burks who go, oh yes, I heard it on the Today programme. You can pay for it then. You've got enough cash. The uber middle class, the uber liberals who love the Today programme, why can't it be sponsored? Why does it have to be paid by a poll tax, a compulsory poll tax? Radio 1's the same. Radio 2. Radio 3, I can understand because they're playing some classical music. Perhaps it needs to have some state subsidy. And when the BBC do the big events, the Olympics and stuff like that, if they can't get the funding behind it, because they do it brilliantly, I think there's a case for some public funding. But what we've got at the moment is this massive state monopoly where they take all the cash. And I don't think that's right. And I think it's got to change. Gavin and Stacey is the prime example. It's going to be the biggest show on telly this Christmas. And if it's not, heads will roll. I tell you one thing, James Corden, it better be good. It better be a lot better than what you did serve up last time. Because people are saying, oh, it's a classic. Really? Is it up there with Morecambe and Wise? Is it up there with Monty Python? Is it like Christmas used to be? I mean, I know I'm being a bit nostalgic, but wasn't Christmas great when actually we only had 2 or 3 channels? You got the radio times and the TV times 3 weeks before. You got a felt tip out and you sort of highlighted what you wanted to watch. There weren't any video recorders. You had to watch it as a family. And it's the same time as when Mum put the Satsumas out and put out the Quality Street. Well, you could tell what a family were like by whether they had Quality Street or Roses. None of those bloody Heroes nonsense. However, those days have gone. Those days of the whole family watching the same program have gone. Everybody is on this. They'll be watching their own programs. And this is another reason why I object to the license fee. I've got Amazon Prime in our household. We've also got Sky, although I'm going to get rid of that very soon. What's the other one we've got? We don't need a license is what I'm trying to say. You can buy it. I tell you what, I've been watching a hell of a lot recently, and I think it's the best TV in the world at the moment, is Paramount Plus. It's on the Disney Channel. I think it's somewhere on there. I've been watching Yellowstone. Have you watched that? Incredible. And the prequel series. If you like Westerns, it's just out of the world. The BBC haven't done anything like that for years. But I have to pay for it because I want to see that. I think the writing and the directing is out of this world. It's extraordinary. But if I want to watch that, I'll have to pay for it. What's the same? If Gavin and Stacey is so bloody brilliant, make me pay for it. Or alternatively, or at least give me a choice if I want to pay for it, or alternatively, get it sponsored. EastEnders, you're telling me EastEnders couldn't get a sponsor? Samaritans probably, or Mogadon. No, I think EastEnders has been quite good recently, but you understand where I'm coming from. I'm not saying adverts every 5 minutes like in the States, but would it hurt EastEnders if it said EastEnders brought to you by Cadbury's, like Coronation Street does? Would it hurt you? Match of the Day brought to you by... Well, their Match of the Day is another prime example. We pay for the Match of the Day. We pay for that idiot crisp pusher, Gary Lineker, although I'm delighted to see that Kelly's taken over, Kenny Dalglish's daughter. I worked with her for a short time at TalkSport. She's a real professional. I think she'll be great on there with Chappers as well. But Lineker, £1.4 million, right? I don't want to pay his wages. Why can't it be sponsored? And when you say, oh, no, you can't have it sponsored, why not? When they interview the footballers at the end of the game, behind them, it's full of bloody adverts. It's already privatized, but by the back door. So what I'm saying is, let's put it legitimately funded. People would fall over themselves to fund Match of the Day. There's other shows. And like I say, even the snobbier stuff, the Radio 4 product, that can be sponsored. Radio 2, therefore, we would cut the cost of the BBC rather than the cost always going up. Likewise, when it comes to news, I believe in BBC local radio. They should be doing local news, local football, sport, rugby, etc. But they shouldn't be playing records. Have you listened to BBC local radio recently? There's some talented people on there. I owe my career to BBC local radio. But there's a load of shit as well. And then they play another record, which you could hear anywhere. Local radio should be banned from playing music unless it's specialist. Local music by the local bands. promoting local culture and talent. Not Sub Radio 2 from 1973 is another Carpenter's track. No, no. There's commercial stations will do that. So I would say BBC local radio needs to be cut in that way. They should be all speech. If that means you've got to pay the presenters a bit more because you need talented people, pay them. Save the money that you would have been spending on poxy or records. Yeah? Do you not see this? It just seems to me to be so obvious. The BBC needs root and branch reform. We should not be having to pay for it, or not to the extent we are. BBC News. If BBC News wants to be partial, if they want to employ people who want to give their opinion rather than just telling what the news is, I'm talking about their main news presenters, then I'm sorry, they should be privatised. There's no way that we should be paying for that. Their bias is off the scale. It's completely wrong. They've even begun to acknowledge this themselves. So coming back to Gavin and Stacey, here's the prime example. We no longer watch telly like we used to. It'll get a good audience. It'll get millions, and it should. But it's not going to be 19.8 million, 20 million, is it? 28 million like Morecambe and Wise, because we don't watch telly like that anymore. We stream. We watch what we want to watch, and we play on demand when we want something. If we judge something to be good. I mean, I had to laugh. I was laughing my duck off the other night. What's it called? What are they calling it now? BBC Sports Personality of the Year. Spotty or something. They've got an acronym for it. It's like, shut up, right? And like, it's a bit ironic, the BBC doing Sports Personality of the Year. Well, one, when the last 2 or 3 years the person hasn't had a personality. And second, they haven't got any real sport. I mean, it was different this year because they had the Olympics. But I noticed Keeley, it was obvious she was going to win. There was no way the BBC, even though they do darts, not very well compared to Sky, but they do darts, there was no way Luke was going to win. And people said, oh, it's a public poll. Oh, yeah. Yeah, public poll. You really believe that? Yeah, okay, I'm with you. Yeah, no one would have gerrymandered that. They wouldn't have had adverts for weeks and weeks pushing the girl. Now, don't get me wrong. When I say this, people think that I'm having a go at Keeley. I'm not. I think she's a marvellous athlete, a marvellous role model. But she didn't do what Luke's done. He's completely revolutionised the game of darts. And don't start, oh, it's not a sport. It's competitive. You have to practice. You have to train. Yes, it's not very, very physical, but it is a sport. It is, because it's competitive. You're working together. You improve. There's technique, etc., etc. It's more of a bloody sport than skateboarding, and that was in the Olympics. Darts should be in the Olympics. And I think it would have sent a real signal that the BBC is for everyone. Because when the BBC talk about diversity, they're talking about Muslims, black people, brown people, gay people, trans people, people who think they're fridges, I don't know, everything. They're not really talking about working class people. When do you ever see working class people portrayed properly on the BBC? I mean, you could say Gavin and Stacey, well, it's upper working class, isn't it? But you know what I'm trying to get at here? The BBC is stuffed full of uber liberals, overeducated, Cambridge and Oxbridge normally, people with a certain view of the world. And that's got to change. It's got to change from a commercial point of view, because we can get our news, we can get our TV, our entertainment, our pop music from so many different sources. When the BBC was invented to educate, inform, and entertain, there wasn't any other stations. Then we got the commercial stations, ITV and the rest of it. And of course, in radio, we had the radio revolution. And that's why there's Ofcom. But there's no need for either things, either Ofcom or the license fee. The world has changed. Over 1 million people didn't pay the license fee. That doesn't mean they're watching it illegally. They're just not watching the BBC. I was out with some young family friends of mine and the kids, and they never watched the news. I'm talking about teenagers, 20, getting on for 20, 22, 23. No, I don't watch the news. What do you mean you don't watch it? Well, if any news I need to pick up, I get it on my phone. The BBC have been left behind. They're a dinosaur. However, that's not to say they don't make some excellent programmes. And if Gavin and Stacey's on this Christmas, you might choose, oh, I'm going to watch that. What else have they got? Call the Midwife. Babies dying left, right, and I can't bear that programme. Then you got the BBC, just been looking at it this morning. In the daytime now, it's Scare a Pensioner programming, isn't it? With that bald-headed Dom guy who's meant to be the voice of the working class. Do you know what I mean? There's him. Oh, scam this, scam that. Old age pensioners watching that must be shitting themselves by the end of it. It's all about scaring people, not reassuring people. It's a disgusting programme. And then you got Under the Hammer. Well, come on. That's been on long enough. I mean, I like Dion Dublin. He's a hero to us Cov fans. And Martell, I work with her at the Sun. She's a lovely girl. But it's outlived its usefulness. Every single programme, it's the same. Let's find out who bought it at the auction. But because of COVID, then they say, this was a telephone auction. Da-da-da. So you don't even have the excitement of seeing which person's going to buy it at auction. And then there's those other programmes, A Place in the Country, where they never actually buy the house. He takes them all around these places and they don't buy it. Why is that on the beat? I think it's called A Place in the Country. Those programmes, you know what I'm talking about. Wall-to-wall shit, right? I was thinking today, do they employ anybody over the age of 30 in the BBC as a director or producer of these shows? I was watching another friend of mine, Gordon Smart. He used to work on the Sun with me. He's a great bloke, but he's standing in for that Welsh guy who used to be on Blue Peter, on that kind of mid-morning show, rip-off of the show that's on the other side that Philip the pervert Schofield used to be on. Maybe he's not a pervert, sorry. But anyway, he does that programme, and Gordon was doing it today. And they again in that programme, they can't resist plugging the rest of their output. They have a Strictly Ballroom person who does the Keep Fit bit. It's like pop will eat itself. Every programme is promoting the other programme, but in this really bland, crass way. And I don't think it's right. So I was watching that programme. They had that guy on. I think he used to be a copper, Rav, I think his name is or something. And he was talking, what was he talking about today? And he was just not educated enough for the things he was trying to say that happened. Not experienced enough. He was just naff. Just absolutely. And I just wondered, why don't you employ some, I'm not saying me, I wouldn't want to do it, but older people who are the target audience, who know that not all old people want to watch shows about scams or buying houses and doing them up and renting them out. And also that Under the Hammer, it sort of says, oh, it's a great way to make money. Is it? I'm not quite sure it is nowadays. But it's just that the BBC, they're caught between being commercial and being a state broadcaster. I say you should separate the two. So some of the things can be funded by advertising or by subscription, and some can still be maybe a small amount of state subsidy. But maybe other companies should be able to apply for that money as well. I know that kind of happens a bit with Channel 4, but that's what should be happening. And the BBC Sports Personality of the Year, yeah, when they've hardly got any sport, come on, let's sort this out. And this massive plug fest for Gavin and Stacey, it's wrong. It's totally and utterly wrong. And I've been surprised. I mentioned it a few weeks ago in some tweets. I thought people would pick up on it and it'd end up somebody in a newspaper saying the same thing. No one has. It just passes them by. Maybe no one's watching the BBC, so they're not seeing this abuse of their dominant market position. But that is what they're doing. So you got Call the Midwife. I won't really slag it off too much because one of my boyhood heroines is in it, Jenny Agutter. What a brilliant actress. But she's playing a nun. I think I preferred her in The Railway Children, and I think I preferred her in Walkabout, written by the brilliant playwright Edward Bond. What a great... Have you seen that film? Set in Australia. He goes out and the father, and he leaves them out in the bush in Australia. What a movie. Hardly any words, but brilliant. So they've got Call the Midwife. They've got that. They've probably got Michael McIntyre. How he's become famous is beyond me. It really is. The wheel, I'd like to tie him to a wheel. I'd like it to be like in Duran Wild Boys video. You know, when it turns around and allegedly Simon Le Bon got caught underneath it. They managed to release him and he survived. But, with McIntyre, I would see how long I could keep him under the water. I'm being nasty, but you know where I'm coming from. You know what I'm saying. And then they're bringing back a program which I really did like when it was on the telly years ago, with the kids in it, the little kids in it, and the mum and dad. Hugh Dennis is in it, isn't it? That's a good show. But they're bringing it back, and all the kids again were on the one show. They're all grown-ups, tattoos, and the rest of it. And that's just the women. I can't see how that's going to work either. Where's the new talent? Where's the new stuff? Where's the BBC experimenting, pushing the edges? Now, I know some people say, hang on, Gaunty, Gavin and Stacey started on BBC 3, went to 2, went to 1. Yeah, okay, I'd have to concede that point. But it's not been on telly for 5 years. Why is it coming back? How much have they spent on it? That's what I'd like to know. And how much, some bright spark in marketing, if you could put down the cocaine for a minute, and they could actually work out what the advertising spend's been on it. It's incredible, the free advertising they've got. If that doesn't beat every other program, including the King's Speech, then there's something amiss. I know it's a bit non-Christmas me saying this, but we have to address these things. When Keir Starmer is cutting things left, right, and centre, I mean, look what he's just done with the waspy women. First time in my life I agreed with Diane Abbott. It's a complete betrayal. He betrayed the older generation, 10 million of them, didn't he? With the winter fuel allowance. By his own admission, people are going to die of cold this winter. So we need to save money where we can save it. And one of the big savings could be the BBC. I am not anti the BBC. I am anti their waste. I worked for them for 30 odd years as a freelancer. I know how much they overpay. I know how much they waste. And all I'm saying is, just with a slight adjustment, some of that money could come from the private sector, and therefore we would have to pay less. Do you agree with me or not? Please send me an email. All your emails I've been getting, I'm going to sort them and read them out after Christmas. It's john@johngaunt.com. Or get on Twitter or get on Facebook. John Gaunt, JONGAUNT. If you're listening to the audio of this, don't forget I've now got my YouTube channel where you can see this in video. Set it to widescreen. And I'm even now beginning to get the lighting right. It's an improvement on yesterday. So it's John Gaunt TV if you want to watch me in beautiful Technicolor. Although my face is getting redder. It's getting a bit like Alan Brazil, medicine ball head. It'll blow up one day if I'm not careful. But yeah, and thanks for your support. See, here's me. I started this again with nothing. I had nothing. And I've asked you to help me, and you've kind of been helping. You have been helping me. Some guy gave me the lights. My wife's bought me the green screen. You've donated coffees. I had an old mate of mine, Blair. Hello, Blair. Nice to hear from you, by the way. Blair Carroll. I went to school with him. We were mates. He had this amazing trick. I got to ask him. He said, we must get together after Christmas. I said, you're all right, Blair. And he said, we seem to have similar views. Well, we'll find out about that, Blair. But all I want to see him for, he used to have this thing. He had big ears. I'm not being nasty, Blair. They were big ears. But he had a great party trick. He could make his... I'm trying to do it now. I can't do it. He could make his ears go up and down separately, one after another. He'd have got a contract with Simon Carroll on Britain's Got Talent if he'd been a kid at this age. He was an amazing talent. I don't know how you do it. I'm trying to do it. I can't do it. But he could get his ears. Anyway, but Blair, it's been great. And thank you. He contributed 5 coffees, 25 quid. And other people have been chucking in money. Thank you. And so I've got this off the ground. What if I can now do broadcasts and talk about issues that matter? I'm not suggesting the whole of the BBC should come from a green screen in some hovel in Coventry, but it just proves how media's changed. And you decide whether you want to watch me or not. And if you really like me, you chuck in a few bob. That's okay. And now we're trying to get some advertisers, and with YouTube, I'm trying to make get enough viewers. I've got enough viewers. What do you call them? Subscribers. But you've got to have watch hours. I've got over nearly 3,000. You've got to have 4,000. Then you can have adverts inserted into it. It'll be a trickle of money. But I'm doing it off my own back. I'm also doing it because I don't want to be part of the media machine. I actually do believe the future is on the internet and on our apps and individual people having their say. I'm saying things on here I could never get away with saying, even on GB News. Talking of which, I was sad to see that Mark Dolan's been let go. He's a nice lad, a really, really nice bloke. And there aren't many nice, genuine blokes in this business we call show, let me assure you. But he was, and he is. And I'm sure he'll bounce back in something else. I understand the rumours are that Kay Burley from Sly News might be going there. I'm not saying anything. Anyway, how did I get onto that? So, yeah, going back, if I can do it off my own back, and the BBC should be able to, we should be getting to a position now where the media is broken up. We are all the media, is what I'm effectively saying. And that's why I want Elon Musk to fund reform as well, because that'll revolutionise, not because I'm supporting reform, because I'm not at this moment, but it will revolutionise politics in this country. I mean, today, there's a ridiculous thing today about the water where they're kind of making out it's a decision between having shit in rivers, yeah, and pollution, or you paying more. Well, I don't think it's a straight choice like that at all. How about not paying the water companies, the profits, and the shareholders and the directors? How about renationalising water? How on earth have we got ourselves into a situation where water, you pay for it twice? You pay for it when you drink it. You pay for it when you piss it out as well for sewage. It's wrong. I don't think electricity or gas should be in the control of the private sector. It's not done any good, is it? There are, Keir Starmer. There's some things you could do positively. And the BBC, the reform of the BBC could save money. Then you'd have more money, Keir, to give to terrorist organisations like the mobsters who are now running Syria. That's what you want to do, isn't it, Keir, with our money? £50 million of our money. Absolutely disgraceful. I see we're going to give more money to the Ukraine. I wouldn't give them a single penny more at the moment. Let's wait till Trump gets into power and see whether he can solve it within a day. We've got to stop spending money as if it's going out of fashion. And I know it's old-fashioned. We've got to put our people first. Did you see the person who's accused of being the Southport killer? 3 little girls who got slaughtered, 10 others who were injured. He wasn't in court, but it was all done by video. He refused to plead. So his own defense people had said, well, he's going to plead not guilty. And he refused to even go on the video link. How have we got to a state where we allow those things to happen? I don't know whether I'm not saying he's guilty or innocent. I am saying we should have known earlier about his persuasion, maybe before the riots, Keir Starmer. And Keir Starmer, he came back. He's been on a world tour. I thought this was a good joke. Keir Starmer's been to more European cities than Taylor Swift. Why doesn't he want to go home? Most blokes always want to get home to their missus, don't they? And their family. I would. Especially as he's got loads of different gaffs he could go to with them. He could go to number 10, go to his house, the £2 million house that he's not got a mortgage on. Oh, no, he's renting that out, isn't he? I don't want to be at the end of a hard day. You want to be with your missus, don't you? Talk things through, maybe have an argument, something to eat together. I think I've said enough. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. I'll probably do another one for you tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed it. But Gavin and Stacey is the reason why we should now defund the BBC. Are you with me or against me? Feel free to support me at buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. And have a good Christmas if I don't speak to you before, but I think I will. So until then, if you have got children, please give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, 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 don't forget to tell them that you love them. I'll see you later. Thanks a lot.